Good morning and welcome to House Education. We will get started in just a moment. If all members could take your seats, if all visitors could be seated, please silence or turn off all cell phones. Again, happy Wednesday. Welcome to House Education. We have 3 bills before us today. I am Representative Tricia Cotham, co-chair, along with my wonderful crew here, Representative Torbett and Representative Blackwell, my fellow co-chairs. Helping us always in our committee are our amazing Sergeant at Arms. When I call your name, if you'll please raise your hand. Mark Douglas over here, Russell Salisbury by the window, Glenn Wall in the back, David Layton right back there. These gentlemen keep us safe every day and will help to control this room. I know there will not be any problems, but they are here and ready. An exciting part of every committee that we have, and I think as legislators, always having our house pages who get to join us for the week and see how this place works, the good and the bad and the uniqueness. So some of our house pages today, when I call your name, if you will please stand, if I have the list of house pages. Are you sure? Okay. House page, is it Charlie Jeter? I believe we know that name. Welcome, and his father is right over here from...
Madam Chairman, can we say we're so sorry at this point?
Well, at first, Mr. Chairman, I will say it says Charles Jeter, and I was looking over here and I thought, well, I guess he's coming back to learn more. So welcome, we're glad to have you. Caroline Joshi, member speaker Tim Moore is your sponsor, welcome. Emma Monroe, sponsored by Representative Mary Belk, welcome. Jack Murphy, sponsored by Speaker Moore, welcome. Audrey Sealer, sponsored by Representative Howard Penny, welcome. Samuel Teague, sponsored by Representative Hardister, welcome. We're glad that you all are here. Of course, we have our amazing staff, our amazing clerks and police officers present today. So we are appreciative of all of you. As I stated, we have 3, if members will come to order. We have 3 bills. We are going to change the order of the bills because this is a very busy time and people are going in and out. First bill that we will take up will be Senate Bill 411. Our second bill of business will be House Bill 686. Our third bill will be Senate 49. The first bill up, this will be on your dashboard, will be Senate Bill 411. Students in home school take PSAT, AP. Representative Torbett is going to carry the bill. There is a PCS before this bill. And
so move, Madam Chairman.
Representative Torbett so moves that the PCS is properly before us. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
After you do the
I'm also going to do it.
okay. I'm going to tell you on this first one, it was House Bill 172 that passed 115 to 0, and the others were 150, 109 to 4, 381, 109 to 0, all in the Senate sitting.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senate Bill 411, various education changes. This is coming to us from Senators Newton, Daniel, and Heiss, so I'll be walking their dog today. Part 1 is medical condition action plans and medical emergency plans. Part 2 is allow students in homeschools to participate in advanced placement exams, the preliminary act and the pre-act. Part 3 allows parental choice in nursing services providers required by an individualized education program. And Part 4 allow licensed registered nurses to be employed as school nurses. Now, aside from the bill, the PCS parts have already gone through as House bills and passed overwhelmingly, some of which unanimously. And I will yield to staff if there are any questions and we stand ready for questions, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions from members of this committee on this legislation? Seeing none, are there any motions for this legislation? Representative Elmore, you are recognized.
I make a motion for a favorable report to the committee substitute for Senate Bill 411, unfavorable to the original bill with referral to rules.
Thank you. Representative Elmore moves for a favorable report with the PCS unfavorable as to the original bill with a re-referral to the Committee on Rules. All of the members in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed will say no. The ayes and the ayes of the chair, the ayes have it, the ayes do have it. The bill passes. Congratulations, Representative Torbett. Moving on to our second item of action today is House Bill 686, Civil Rights Education. Representative Hardister, welcome to House Education. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, committee. The PCS for House Bill 686 would require a unit on civil rights.
Representative Hardister, just one quick second. This is another PCS, and Representative Lambeth moves that the PCS is properly before us. Thank you, Representative Hardister. You have the floor again.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. The PCS for this bill would require a unit on civil rights to be taught as part of middle school social studies and also the civic literacy course that's required in high school. This was actually inspired by the teachings of Martin Luther King Jr., and I have to give a shout out to Dr. Matt Daniels with the Institute of World Politics for the work that he's done on this. He brought this idea to us, the General Assembly. This has been passed in 8 other states, and basically what it does, it would require the civil rights movement to be taught, and of course that occurred primarily from 1954 to 1968 in the United States, and also, as Martin Luther King Jr. taught us and spoke about and wrote about, the philosophy that hatred on the basis of immutable characteristics leads to profound injustice, and then also instruction on other acts of discriminatory injustice to reinforce that hatred on the basis of immutable characteristics can take over any society. I believe these are precepts that we all agree upon that are important, and this would essentially inculcate these precepts within the current middle and high school civics and the social studies that are currently required. Got to give a shout out as well to your co-chair up here, Representative Blackwell, who's a wise man for being a co-sponsor on this bill, as well as my good friend over here, Representative Amos Quick. We both represent Guilford County together. Despite the fact we're in different parties, there's actually quite a bit of common ground that we found here. So with that, I'll yield and appreciate your support.
Thank you, Representative Hardister. Representative Quick, I would be delighted to recognize you if you would like to make some remarks to the committee. Welcome to House Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I will be brief. There was some question about the amount of appropriation that was included in the bill. What we're looking for is the successful implementation of this program, and hopefully we'll be able to bring it back with much success and look for further appropriations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Members, are there questions or comments on this legislation? I see a motion. Representative Lambeth with the question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's more a comment. And yesterday we had the opportunity to pass a bill that was called the Becky Carney bill that would put AEDs in all the schools around for athletic events. And I think this bill is another example where you see the two parties and the two differences come together to form a bill that's actually a very good bill, and I'm honored to be able to support it. You know, the media loves to highlight our differences, but there are many times we come together and do something together in a very positive way, and I appreciate both of you from different parties doing that, and I just want to commend you for that.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Blackwell, you are recognized for your motion.
Move for a favorable report to the PCS, unfavorable to the original bill with the referral to rules.
Thank you, Representative Blackwell. Members, you have heard Representative Blackwell's motion for a favorable report, unfavorable to the original bill with a referral to appropriations.
Yes, appropriations instead of rules.
All members in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed will say no. In the eyes of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The bill passes and moves on to appropriations. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you for your good work. Members, we are waiting on one more bill. Welcome. Senator Galey just walked in. So our next bill up on our agenda will be Senate Bill 49. And Senator Galey, welcome to House Education. I know. Members, before we get started, there is a PCS to this bill. Representative Jake Johnson moves that the PCS is properly before us. The PCS, members, is on the committee website if you need to see it. Senator Galey, welcome. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. So the Parents' Bill of Rights, the intention of this is, during the pandemic, when parents across North Carolina were tasked with the responsibility of watching over their children while their children engaged in their education online, many parents had concerns about the curriculum that they saw. Parents, of course, over time have had concerns about other ways that they've interacted with the school system. And unfortunately, too often the case when parents approach school officials with concerns about curriculum or other matters, they've felt like they've gotten the stiff arm from school administration, where they're kind of put to the side and they have trouble getting the answers that they need so that they can advocate in a proper way for their children. So the Parents' Bill of Rights is ultimately an attempt to address that situation so that parents know what their rights are relative to the school system, and to require local educational units to enact policies that will flesh out those rights and give them wings and feet so that they actually are meaningful, and notify parents of the ways that they can engage with the school system and have their questions and concerns addressed. So the first part of the Parents' Bill of Rights delineates a number of rights that already exist. It takes things that are in law, federal or state law, and puts them in one place so that a parent can access that and see what their rights are. So things such as directing the education and care of their child, their moral or religious training, enrolling their child in a public or non-public school, accessing and reviewing all education records under the federal FERPA Act, making health care decisions unless otherwise conflicting with law, accessing and reviewing medical records, prohibiting sharing, storage of a biometric scan of their child, prohibiting storage of the child's blood or DNA, prohibiting the creation by the state of a video voice recording. And of note, the PCS in front of you differs from the Senate version in that under this section, the Senate version said that gave an exception for security or surveillance of buildings or grounds, and the PCS before you includes school transportation in that because often school systems have video cameras on school buses or other forms of transportation so that they can monitor the children's safety and behavior. And then also the bill says that a parent has the right to be promptly notified if an employee of the state suspects that a criminal offense has been committed against the child. Nothing in this legislation would change the fact that a parent cannot abuse or neglect their child or otherwise engage in unlawful conduct. And state employees, including school officials, still must work within their official capacity to protect the health and safety of children when there is suspicion of abuse or neglect of the child. And then if an employee of the state attempts to encourage or coerce a child to withhold information from their parent, that employee may be subject to disciplinary action. The bill also sets out a priority for parental involvement in public schools. The public school units shall inform parents of their legal rights and responsibilities, provide parents guides. The parents have legal rights with regards to their children's education, consenting or withholding consent in reproductive health and safety education programs, seeking immunizations, reviewing standardized assessment results, inspecting textbooks, getting the report cards, and so forth. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole bill to you. You can do that, but trying to hit the highlights here. Then the State Board of Education shall develop minimum requirements for a parent's guide to student achievement so that parents would receive information, particularly with course of study, textbooks, and other supplementary instructional materials. There should be policies for inspection and review of those materials. The parents need to be notified of what those policies are and how they can view and inspect educational instructional materials. The parents are notified of services available, opportunities for parental participation, educational choices available to parents, rights of students with disabilities, and how to contact school and unit offices. And then the school unit shall provide a parent guide for student achievement that helps parents understand how they can support their child in their education. So there shall be, the governing body of a public school unit shall adopt procedures to notify the parent at the beginning of each school year, notice of each healthcare service offered at the school, and the means for the parent to provide consent for any specific service. Prior to any changes in the name or pronoun used for a student in school records or by school personnel, the public school unit must adopt a procedure to provide notice to the parent of the change. There shall be a requirement that the school personnel encourage a child to discuss issues related to the child's well-being with the parent and facilitate discussion of issues with the child's parents. The governing body and the public school unit shall not adopt procedures that will prohibit school employees from notifying a parent about their child's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, and they shall not encourage or have the effect of encouraging a child to withhold from that child's parent information about their mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being or a change in related services or monitoring. The school personnel shall not discourage or prohibit parental notification of and involvement in critical decisions affecting a student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. There shall be age-appropriate instruction for grades kindergarten through 4th grade. Instruction on gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality shall not be included in the curriculum provided in grades kindergarten through 4th grade. For purposes of the bill, curriculum includes the standard course of study and support materials, locally developed curriculum, supplemental instruction and textbooks, and other supplementary materials, but does not include responses to student-initiated questions. Then there's remedies for parental concerns. If a parental concern has not been resolved under the section, then the parent may either notify the State Board of Education and request a parental concern hearing, or the parent may bring an action against the public school unit for a declaratory judgment. And the court may award injunctive relief as well as reasonable attorney's fees and costs to the parent. There's, so when groups come in and they want to do a survey of the students, the parent has the right to opt in. So the education unit would have to provide the student the survey that's proposed to be given to the students to the parent in advance of the student taking the survey, and the parent would have to give affirmative consent to administer the survey to their child instead of having to opt out of it. So no student will be permitted to participate in a protected information survey without prior written or electronic consent of the parent or the adult student. So these kind of surveys would be things that ask about political affiliations of the parent or the family, mental or psychological problems of the student or the student's family, sex behavior or attitudes, illegal, antisocial, self-incriminating, or demeaning behavior, legally recognized privileged or analogous relationships such as those of lawyers, physicians, and ministers, religious practices of the family, and income other than required by law to determine eligibility for participation in certain programs. Then the parental consent for medical treatment, there's another couple of changes in here from the version that the Senate passed. One is the definition of the parent is modified a little bit to include someone acting in loco parentis or in the place of the parent. And that definition includes in loco parentis is a person who has assumed parental responsibilities, including support and maintenance of the minor. And then under parental consent for treatment, there was a concern raised by some in the medical community that the way the Senate version originally was written would maybe imply that there was a duty each time the patient child came for a doctor's appointment or each time they refilled their medication prescription that they would have to obtain fresh consent. So to address that concern, we added the documented consent is adequate. So the child comes in with the parent to be treated for, say, depression, and the care provider documents in the chart that the parent has provided consent. That should be sufficient to cover the fact that the parent has consented. And each time the child comes in for a subsequent office visit, they shouldn't have to refresh that consent. So it's a long bill. There's a lot in it. There's been a lot of interest in it, and I am ready to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Are there questions or comments in front of the committee? Representative Biggs, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Gailey, I appreciate this bill, appreciate all the hard work you did on it, and definitely as a former school board member in 2020, a lot of things come to light, and a lot of transparency issues came to light. And I know one side of it always, and I think parents ought to be raising kids, and parents are teaching morals, and parents are the ones that we want to be given the guidance, not someone at the schoolhouse. We want the schoolhouse to educate our students. One question I have that I think a lot of people says was taking away the rights of the children. Can you expound how this impacts the rights of children in this bill here?
Thank you for that question, Representative Biggs. In the United States, generally, children don't have rights versus their parents. Parents have the right to educate and give the moral training and to provide for the physical safety of children unless that parent is abusive or neglectful and otherwise enters the system for social services. And there's an adjudication process through that. So the state, when they seek to impact the rights of parents over the children in cases of abuse and neglect, the state has a burden of proof that they have to meet through adjudication process and with presentation of witnesses who are cross-examined. Other than that, in the United States, according to United States Supreme Court law, parents have rights over their children, or they have I would say the responsibility and the duty to bring up the children within the context of their culture and their religion and their faith.
Can I have one follow-up?
Thank you, Senator. Representative Biggs, recognized for a follow-up, and if we can just, for all members, make sure we go through the chair. Thank you. Representative Biggs, you're recognized for a second time.
The parents, the parents we want clear transparency over the child's education. Can you expound on the medical side of it? Because I know that's a big thing right now, that parents felt like it was not transparent on the medical side. They wanted to make sure that they were knowing what was going into their kids' bodies or what was happening or what was being told to them. Could you expound on the medical side, if you could?
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill doesn't really seek to change that much with respect to the medical consent. It describes it that consent must be obtained, which I think is really current practice is what I understand. It doesn't change the prior existing statute, North Carolina General Statute 90-21.5, when a minor's consent is sufficient for certain medical health services. Those are times when a minor is being diagnosed and treated for a venereal disease, an STD, pregnancy, abuse of drugs or alcohol or emotional disturbance. That statute's been in existence, as I understand it, for 20, 30 years. And we haven't really heard any, I haven't, maybe some of you have been around longer than me. I don't think there's been a lot of concern that that statute was being abused by the medical community. And I think there's good public policy reasons for those to be in place. So the bill doesn't really change the medical consent. It elaborates on it and it makes it clearer.
Thank you, Senator. Next up, Representative Torbett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator, for being here today and presenting the bill. I'm not an attorney, so I need to ask some questions when I don't understand how the law acts. In this document, is there anything punitive or punishment for bad actors that don't go by the law that we're dictating in this bill?
Senator, you're recognized for a series.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I said, Representative Torbett, employees of the state may be subject to disciplinary measures. The purpose of the bill really is more to inform parents about what their rights are and to have the local education units have policies in place to give effect to those rights. The point behind the bill is not so much to put, I hate to use the word teeth or punish, but one would hope that by the school board or the educational unit giving access to parents of the information that they need, that would give the parent the power to advocate for their child in an appropriate way.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Representative Torbett for a follow-up.
Thank you. And say someone speaks out in open defiance of some of the things we're putting in place. Is there any action that can be taken? And if so, where does that action come from?
Representative Torbett, that is a great question, and one that has been, I think, on the minds of many of us as we have worked on this bill and considered it. And it's also a great concern across the state and many other circumstances. You have elected officials across the state who unfortunately seem not to care as much about their oath of office as they should. You have school boards that are enacting school calendars that are in open defiance of the school calendar bill. You have times where you have district attorneys who refuse to prosecute categories of criminal offenses because they personally disagree with them. I think that what you asked is a really good question. What are we going to do about elected officials across the state who essentially would turn their back on their oath of office and not do their job? I think that's an important thing for our state and our country to wrestle with, and I think that they should be held accountable. Definitely by the voters who have supported them.
Thank you. Representative Morey, you're recognized for a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Gailey. I have one question, then a comment. Is there a reason why in this bill it doesn't also apply to all educational institutions, private schools, private charter schools? It's only mentioning public schools?
Senator, you're recognized for all answers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we don't really have jurisdiction over private schools setting up policies and procedures. I don't think that we want the state to get into the business of dictating to private schools, any private group, a school, a community club, any other association, what they have to do. And in the case, if a parent in a private school is dissatisfied with the curriculum, if they're dissatisfied with the response from that private school, then they can disengage and go, that's what school choice is all about. So I don't think we want the state to exert a jurisdiction over private organizations in that manner, and those parents have an alternative to that.
Follow-up comment?
You're recognized for one more comment and follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. The problem is we're also giving private schools taxpayer money and opportunity scholarships. And we're saying public schools have to have incredible burdens of reporting, of not reporting, of how we deal with children who have questions, textbook protests, opt-out. I mean, when their job is teaching. And I see we give all this taxpayer money we're offering to private schools when they have little, if any, educational mandates, but we're burdening the public schools, taking away principals and teachers from the job of teaching to make sure they're following all these administrative responsibilities. Much of what is in this bill says nothing new. I think, as you said, parents already have these existing rights. We're just putting them in this bill. The same with the medical concerns. This bill kind of boils down to maybe a page and a half of restrictions, especially on what we teach K through 4th grade. And I think what people in this state want is to look at how do we improve public education? How do we pay our teachers and our principals? How do we get early childhood? And how do we have safe schools? But not going into the minutia that really has nothing to do about the polar star of the state, which is in the legal community, the best interest of the child.
Thank you, Representative Morey, for your comments. Members, we are going to make sure that we always remain germane to the bill and not discuss other legislation that is not before this committee. If, Senator, would it be okay for the sake of time if I move to another question, or do you feel the need to respond?
If it pleases the chair, I would like to respond.
You are recognized.
It's fresh on my mind and others' minds. The representative has described the working with parents, the school systems working with parents and the education of their children as, quote, an incredible burden, which I don't think that school systems should view it that way. The school system is there to assist and support the family and education of their children and hopefully inculcate a lifelong love and cherishing of learning and education. What is new in this bill is requiring schools to respond to parents who have concerns. Parents who have had concerns, especially since the pandemic, have not been able to get those concerns addressed by the school system, that people don't return their phone call, people don't return an email, they get the stiff arm, as I said. So this bill it does delineate their rights, but it also gives effect to those rights and gives parents an avenue where they can those rights actually have meaning.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Willis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Galey, for bringing this forward. I think it's certainly been a topic of interest and much discussion over the last few years. And as a parent of 3 children that are in school, and as an owner and an operator of a non-public school in this state, I don't see this as a burden. I mean, honestly, and as a parent, I see it as an obligation. Why would we not want to be more open and transparent about what we're doing in terms of education and especially when it's dealing with children? And so I commend you for the work that's been done on this, and I would say in some ways I'd like to see it go further. I'll add on to a comment that Representative Torbett made earlier regarding some repercussions. I think there should be something in there. For those that are not willing to follow their oath of office or do what they do, there should be recourse for those parents. And I would say as an operator of a non-public school, I think we do have the opportunity to include those schools in this, as well as our charters. And I think the parents of those students have the rights to have that information and to be able to make a thorough decision of what's the best interest of them when it comes to school choice. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Willis. Do you have a response, or may I go on for the sake of time, Senator Galey? Representative Eiler, you recognize briefly, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one comment about on page 8, it's age-appropriate instructions for grades K through 4. My school board and some of our folks back where I represent would like to, since they're in the same building as 5th graders, and we know that children talk among themselves, we would like to see that 5th grade, but I understand this was heavily negotiated, and instead of trying to amend this bill, I hope we can revisit that, and because in most cases, I think they're educated in the same building, 4th and 5th graders. So just a comment based on my school board's wishes. Thank you.
May I comment, Madam Chair?
You're recognized, Senator.
So thank you for that reflection, Representative Eiler. I have reviewed the standards for the health class and for the 5th grade. So the bill says that there will not be instruction on gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality. And the standards that have been decided upon by the State Board of Education, which as we all know, the Constitution gives them the duty to do that. The standards say that the 5th grade shall analyze the changes, influences that occur during puberty and adolescence. That includes summarizing the functions of the male and female reproductive system, and it also includes instruction on the onset of reproductive capacity. So those two standards would touch on the issue of sexuality and sexual activity, perhaps when you're talking about reproductive capacity and the functions of the reproductive systems. And that is why, and so that's for 5th grade. So that's why when we were drafting this bill, we didn't want to get into, a constitutional debate about who gets to decide what the standards are. So your point is well taken, and I appreciate it.
Representative Torbett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator. You made a statement there, and I just want to question, make sure I understand. Current state law states that reproductive rights would not be taught beyond or before grade 7. Did I hear you correctly in saying that now we'll allow that to be happening in grade 5?
Representative Torbett, what I understand is the standards for the North Carolina Standard Course for Study for Healthful Living Curriculum, Standard 5.ICR.2, is analyzing the changes and influences that occur during puberty and adolescence. And there's 5.1 ICR.2.1 through 2.4, and those are the standards that I was referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And members, we are getting close down to the end of time for this committee. We still have members who wish to speak. I will acknowledge them. I was hoping for public comment, but that may not be possible. I will put the vote before the body at the appropriate time. Representative Brockman, you are recognized. Representative Brockman passes. Representative Ball, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to follow up, Senator Galey, to the question that Chair Torbett asked you about what happens if these policies are not followed by people in the school. And I understood that you answered it based on what might happen if the person was an elected official. In regards to should a teacher not follow these things and a parent find out about it, what can happen to the teacher? And what are the steps that a parent has to take to be able to confront what that parent believes is not adhering to the policies in this bill?
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Ball, for that question. So there's two answers to that. One is that the employee may be subject to disciplinary action. For two, I refer you to page 8, line 22. So if there's concerns that aren't resolved by the public schools unit within 30 days, the parent may either notify the State Board of Education of the concern and request a parental concern hearing, and then the State Board shall approve or reject the recommended decision of a hearing officer, and then the public school unit pays the cost for the hearing officer, or the parent may bring an action against the public school unit for a declaratory judgment that the unit's procedure or practice violates this bill. So, and that's at the parent's decision, which they would prefer to do. And if they do bring in an action for a declaratory judgment, then they can get a reasonable attorney's fees and costs.
Thank you.
Representative Von Hafen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the bill sponsor. In Section 3 around parental authorization for healthcare minors, it states that a healthcare practitioner shall not provide, solicit, or arrange treatment for a minor child without first obtaining written or documented consent from that minor child's parent. And then it goes on to define who a healthcare practitioner is. I just want to make sure I understand. Is somebody that works in a public school as a school nurse, counselor, psychologist, are those considered healthcare practitioners?
Thank you, Representative Von Hoffen. Yes, the healthcare practitioner is defined as an individual who is licensed, certified, or otherwise authorized under certain chapters, including Chapter 90 and Chapter 115C, to provide healthcare services in the ordinary course of business or practice of the profession, or in an approved education or training program. So, yes, I believe that would cover people who work in the school system.
Follow-up, please.
Follow-up, you're recognized.
Thank you. So basically, that means that this bill would require parents to consent before a student received counseling, received any kind of healthcare services from the nurse at the school. Is that right?
Yes, Representative Von Hoffen, I think that that is what the bill contemplates.
Follow-up,
Unless it's
please.
an emergency or some other kind of exception applies.
Representative Von Hafen, I couldn't hear you. You asked for a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
You're recognized for a third time.
Thank you. And then on page 7 of the bill, where it states that in accordance with the right of parents, the procedure shall include a requirement that school personnel do one or both of the following: encourage a child to discuss issues related to the child's well-being with his or her parent, I guess, or facilitate discussion of the issue with the child's parent. Issue could be anything ranging from abuse and neglect in the home to depression, anxiety. I mean, basically that kind of covers the gamut. Is that correct?
There's, earlier in the bill, there's the part where it talks about how it doesn't interfere if school personnel believes the child is subject to abuse or neglect, then they have the mandatory duty to report, of course. And I don't think that that section would apply if there's an abuse or neglect in the home. But otherwise, yes, the schools should discuss issues related to the child's well-being with their parents.
Can I make a comment, Madam Chair?
You may make a brief comment.
Thank you. I appreciate the exception for abuse or neglect, but I think that the bill really does not address how abuse is actually identified by teachers and school personnel in schools. I mean, abused children do not typically go to a teacher or counselor and just say, I'm being abused. There has to be a relationship that's developed with that teacher, that those experienced teachers and staff are trained in how to identify children who might be abused or neglected. And I think that this bill really ignores the reality of what goes on in schools when it comes to how children go to their teachers, how do they go to their counselors and express that they are having issues, whether it's at home, whether it's with their peers. And this bill is just overly broad, and the mandatory notification requirements before a student can receive counseling is going to have a chilling effect at a time when we have discussed in this committee so many times about how we're all concerned with the mental health of our students. This is going to basically discourage them from disclosing that need for help. And by putting these really broad and really vague notification requirements on our teachers and students we're just going in the absolute wrong direction. I mean, there's so many other things I could talk about with the bill, but I just wanted to focus on that for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative, for your questions. Member, for the sake of time, we are going to move forward. Representative Biggs, you are recognized for a motion.
Senate Bill 49, I make the motion of a favorable report to the PCS with an unfavorable to the original with a re-referral to rules.
Members, you have heard the motion by Representative Biggs for a favorable report to the PCS, unfavorable as to the original bill with a referral to the rules. All in favor of this motion will say aye. Aye. All opposed will say no. No. In the ayes of the chair, the ayes do have it. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Ladies and gentlemen, this committee is over.